Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
BixWeir.com just posted my discussion with Andy Schechtman about silver called The Fog of War, Silver and Gold. The Fog of War in Global Gold and Silver-Backed Currencies. In the chat room of that one, I'm getting a lot of questions about how, the BRICS nations going on to a gold standard. How is that even possible? Will it happen? What's the story? Jim Rickards has kind of waffled. Now he's saying, they don't even need gold. All they had to do is peg their currencies to gold. I mean, that's the same thing we have now. And do they trust each other? My big thing is, it would be great for the United States. We have the most gold out of anybody. I mean, we just do according to the official numbers. So I did a little analysis of the official numbers. First of all, let's go check out the interview with Andy. And here, according to the Gold Hub, the World Gold Council website, these are banks with all the, or central banks with all the gold. And as you can see, the United States of America is sitting here way at the top at 8,133 tons of gold, by far more than double any other nation. Now, what I took a look at was, first of all, BRICS. The BRICS nations, how did they look? If you combine all the gold of the BRICS nations, you come up with 5,445 tons, all five: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Well, that's still way below what the U.S. has. That's only 67% of what the U.S. has in gold. Now, if you take the BRICS and all the people who want to join the BRICS at the moment, it's like 40 different countries, it would encompass what the BRICS would make up. That's about 30% of the gold. So the massive amount of gold held by treasuries in these currency groups, I call the USA and monetary allies have 22,000 tons, 22,335. So 70% of the world is controlled by the United States and the Western countries, European, UK, things like that, Australia, Canada, Mexico. But all the BRICS combined is only 30%. And what they're talking about is just the BRICS nations as far as Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and South Africa. That's 17% of the world population. So would it really behoove the BRICS nations to set up some kind of gold standard when the United States of America would be the strongest competitor in that field if the U.S. wanted to do the same thing? It gets really squirrely. And who's to say that any of these numbers are right? No, not one country has their gold audited. None of them. So they're all lying. They're all lying. So it gets back to, will a gold standard really matter? Now, Andy's take, and I agree with him, it's a start. Well, it's a continuation, but it'll clearly shine a light. And that's all we got to do is shine light on the manipulation. Ultimately, the United States will go back onto a gold standard because we have so damn much of it. We have a hell of a lot more than 8,133 tons of gold. We have hundreds of thousands of tons of gold. And I know what Jeffrey Christian says. I know what the gold the gold, what is it called? The World Gold Council says there's only a couple 100,000 ounces or tons of gold that have ever been mined. The biggest lie in human history. And it's been going on for so long. And they needed that lie back when in the 1900s when they set the price of gold in the U.S. at $20 and something cents. What did that do? It took a lot of gold out of play because it wasn't valuable enough to mine it at $20 and I think 17 cents or something like that. And that's why they left all the billions of ounces of gold in the banks of the Colorado River, because it wasn't profitable to mine. Then they put it all in national parks and desert wildlife preserves, you name it. The United States has hidden its gold the best they can in the ground. Ultimately, we will go back to a gold standard. I do believe that the U.S. Mint is stockpiling massive amounts of gold and silver coinage to distribute to the U.S. public. As the head of the Mint at the time, David Ryder says, he was adding to the nest. They changed the back of the silver eagles because they're adding to the nest. And yes, David Ryder was in charge of a way to scan coins on the crystalline structure so that you can identify a specific coin by its structure. And that way you can allocate coins to the population on a blockchain, on a wallet, and you can use portions of your gold and silver. Really interesting stuff. That's what he did at Honeywell before he went back. David Ryder was the head of the mint in the 90s. Then they brought him back to make the changeover to the new silver and gold eagles, the ones with the notch that can be scanned. And so I think they're more or less valuable. Go check out my discussion with Jenny Moonstone on the private road yesterday. We go down that path, and it's really interesting, crazy interesting. Anyway, so besides that, yes, obviously if the BRICS nations go to a gold-backed currency, the United States of America will have the most gold. So if that gold is freely traded, or if that currency is freely traded, the United States controls all currencies, FX market. I talked to Andy about that. $7 trillion a day in foreign exchange derivatives are traded every day with the computers at the Exchange Stabilization Fund within the United States. They control it all. Click of a mouse, poof, gone. There goes the BRICS currency. If it's freely traded. If it's not freely traded, then what are they going to do? Rely on the rigged price of gold for their currency? It just makes no sense at all. But it does make sense if the system crashes before they implement their gold currency. I think that's what they're doing. They're planning for it so that when the U.S. clicks the mouse, destroys the system, they'll have something in place that they can trade with other countries. The Road to Ruta documents clearly show that the United States expects no trade to go on between countries, at least for a couple of years after the destruction of the old system and we go back to a gold and silver standard. Because what country would want to export their gold and silver when it's the only money they have now? Hope that all makes sense. By the way, we're getting into August. August is when the banking crashes are going to really kick in. September, we have news already that Bank of California agrees to buy PacWest as regional lenders seek strength together. PacWest was about to go down, so they had an arranged marriage. I hear it was J.P. Morgan that arranged it, and ultimately it'll be J.P. Morgan taking over Bank of California after they suck up a couple more regionals. Because they're all bankrupt. They're all, literally every single bank on the planet is a fraud. And they're all fractionally reserved. Now, everybody says the big banks are good because the Fed will bail them out. I'm not so sure about that. The Fed is the one wanting to pull the plug. They know this game can't go on. We're starting to lose the game. The United States cannot lose this fiat game. We control the game. We can end the game with a click of a mouse. We can't lose the game. But we're starting to lose to China and Russia and the BRICS countries coming together. We will never allow the loss to happen. We would destroy the system beforehand. Anyway, if you go to Road to Ruta, the public page, you can get public road updates. Put your name and email address in right there. At roadtoruta.com, I've put back up the troubled bank list that I got a while back, looking at their Tier 1 capital, who's underwater, who's not. Obviously, Signature Bank, SVB already went down, First Republic. I found it interesting that PacWest is not on this list. So PacWest, there's a lot of banks that are not on the list of troubled banks, not even in the scope of what the FDIC is looking at. So the FDIC will come out at the end of the month with their quarterly review for the second quarter, which ended at the end of June, and we are going to see a massive jump again in the unrealized losses. Now, this is the jump. It was third quarter of last year that really jumped, and unrealized losses were hitting $675 billion that most of the banks, these regional banks, had on their books. And the reason for that was the increase in treasury rates, which decreased the value of the bonds. And if you take a look at what happened, let's look at the 2-year. So the end of the third quarter of last year, we had right in here about 4.0%, which was putting the banks underwater. So anything above that is going to literally destroy the banks. And that's what we saw happening. And then we had a reprieve. When all the banks went down, the SVB, the United States of America brought down the Treasury interest rates with computer manipulation just to get past that first quarter. That's why the FDIC said it's the second quarter that we're really worried about. And as you can see, what happened in the first quarter, they spiked to 5. The 2-year spiked to 5. Had it been at the end of the month, the end of March, this is when all those banks started going under. Had it been at the end of the month, they would have had to report over $1 trillion in losses. Then we move forward to the end of the next quarter, which was they bumped it way down again to 4. So it wasn't as bad. But then we have the end of June, which they lost control of it again, and it hit 5 again. So we're at DEFCON 5 at the banks right now. They'll report it to the FDIC. Will the FDIC bail out banks again? Unsecured depositors. Janet Yellen said no. We will see. We will see. I don't see any way it's humanly possible that she wouldn't do that. But if that even comes up, we would probably see chaos everywhere in the world. So she wouldn't even get a chance. It doesn't even matter if you bail out people or not. You're not going to have anything in these banks. The banks are going to be gutted. And then everybody's going to try to run in and get their deposits out, and it just gets ugly. Some people say we'll go to a CBDC. I don't see anybody on the planet agreeing to what the same people who got us in the trouble are trying to find solutions out of it. It's clear in the Road to Ruta documents that even gold and silver might not be accepted by the people of the United States. They might be so angry at the system, they're going to just say, fuck it, we'll go Mad Max. Nobody really knows. I do think we'll go back to the gold and silver because it is part of our Constitution. We can go back to it, and a lot of states are already passing laws to use gold and silver as money. And clearly the U.S. Mint is working on something behind the scenes to make as much gold and silver coinage as possible before they have to distribute it to the public. Keep an eye on that. But yes, we have had in the last, let's look at the last 3 months, we're talking massive jumps in treasury yields, which means the value of the treasuries are going down, which means the value on the books of the unrealized losses are continuing to pile up higher and higher. And that comes out, the FDIC reports on that at the end of August. So we're in that time frame when chaos is pretty much guaranteed. I don't see an election happening next year. I don't see how it ever would. What will happen to Biden? Will he get impeached? I don't know if he's even in there right now, truthfully. But clearly the Democrats, they already announced that they aren't going to do any debates. I mean, what the hell's going on, right? You ever just sit there and go, nobody's going to jail for these crimes that are just so obvious? There's no debates for the presidential election scheduled. Biden's doing no fundraising at all. It's like he's not even running, and which is probably true. There's no reason to run if we're not going to hold an election because the system falls apart. So if you're looking at the longest time you have to wait, I know we've waited decades. If you're looking at the longest time you'll have to wait, I would say the longest time is the elections next year. I don't see us getting past 2023, though, without serious destruction of the unbacked fiat monetary system, which will take down the derivatives, which takes down everything. So I think it's all coming to a head. I'm not worried about it at all. If you've done your homework and you know what's coming or what could come, you've got your metal and your crypto on the sidelines and you're just watching the show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to all my videos over the last 10 years and you'll learn. Go to roadtoruta.com, sign up for the updates, and I'll keep you guys informed. But all the short-term treasuries are blowing out. Look at this. The 1-year treasury, it hasn't been this high. It's at 5.34. Hasn't been this high since, what is that? September of 2000. And remember, even in here, even in this region here, the end of last year, the 1 year was down at below 4, and now it's at 5.37. These banks, anybody holding 1 year treasuries that is a bank, you're getting destroyed, absolutely gutted. Same with 2 year and 5 year. I mean, the 2 year. Look at the 2 year. When was the last time it was at 4.9%. It's back here in right here. And it would be March of 2006. This is just, there is bloodletting at the banks right now. And then the 5-year, which they can't get out of, people trying to get out of it, 4.2. I mean, the last time it was up here is in right before the crash of 2008. Actually, it's in 2007 when the crash started. So get ready. I mean, at a minimum, this list of banks is going down. If you go to Road to Ruta, this is the front page. At a minimum, these banks are going down. And since Pac West wasn't even in here, there's a hell of a lot more banks that will be going down over the next few months. I think near the end of, right now it's happening already. We saw the spike. Remember the beginning of the year, January, February, March. In March of this year, if you look right in here, see this spike right here on the treasury yields. That's when all these banks were like, oh shit, we're in trouble. And the bailouts were happening and all that. Well, the same thing is happening right now. We're up at that point already. And you can really see it in the 2-year. I mean, look at the 2-year. Here's what was happening in March. You see this little peak? We're there again. Yeah, they slammed it down. They got the price down, but we are there again. We're at 4.9 on the 2-year. And the 1-year is just getting blown out. Look at that. That's just crazy. And remember, the higher the yield on these treasury bonds that are already there at the banks, the higher the yield. That means the newer stuff going out is selling for 5.3. And if you try to sell your bond that's paying 1% interest, you're going to have to take a hit on your principal, which is why they are all underwater. With these high interest rates, there's nothing they can do except take the losses if they need the capital. And then, the FDIC and the OCC are coming out saying, oh, all the banks need more Tier 1 capital. Well, you're asking them to build more capital at the same time the capital they have is being destroyed. So, yeah, it's the end of banking as we know it coming up very fast. I think we're going to see a lot of action at the end of September with the BRICS, whatever they're going to do, and with the announcement by the FDIC that, oh, by the way, we have over, losses of $800 billion instead of the $600 billion. Or what if it's losses of $1 trillion on the books of the banks that they haven't declared yet? What would the people do? And it's going nothing but up right now. So very interesting what it'll look like at the end of September. A lot of people saying inflation's raging back and it's going to come really fast. And then that would mean by the end of September, the regional banks will be down what? $2 trillion in underwater assets? I mean, it was only 600 billion in March of last year that everybody was freaking out trying to pull their money out of the banks. Don't be sitting on the sidelines on this. It's crazy. And don't listen to the media. More information and check out the Jenny Moonstone discussion, the Silver Eagle Conspiracy Secrets. Really interesting stuff. Should you have eagles? Should you have 100-ounce bars, 1,000-ounce bars? What should you keep your silver in and why? And we go down that path. Go check it out. That's all I got. This is Bix. I'll talk to you later.